Welcome. It's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, well, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
When she found out who left her, she began to cry. Little Abel, at just 4 years old, was the head of the household. He lived alone with his mother, who never left her humble home, suffering from a strange disease that affected her circulatory system and that kept her in constant risk of collapsing. So he had to stay home, and from there he did what he could to get some money. The job that Mildred and her son Abel had supported since the father died, when the little one was only 1 year old, was folding packaging for all kinds of businesses, mainly pizza boxes. And since he had to fold 12 boxes to get a single penny, he doubled hundreds in a week in order to have some money to feed himself, and very precariously. The rent did not have to be paid because of her husband. Several years before he died, he'd built a room with a small kitchen on the outskirts of the city, in a land that was constantly flooded and that made living conditions quite dangerous, not only because of the constant risk of flooding, but by the insects that were rampant there. Thanks to the humidity, it was possible that Mildred's disease had been generated in this place. But they had no other options. Despite the fact that she was constantly worried about her health of little Abel, she would have done anything to get out of that place, and even would have been willing to live on the streets. If it weren't for that illness, which didn't allow him to move, at least they had a roof there. From a very young age, Abel was in charge of the purchases they could make to survive. The boy was leaving his house with a small wheelbarrow, and once in town, he met Mildred's only friend, who helped the boy with shopping and led him back to the outskirts. She would have liked to help a lot more, but she was almost as poor as they were and had 2 children to support. Abel, for his part, never complained about the long distances he had to travel. Despite his short and very slim legs, he continually resented having to work harder than anyone his age should. He knew he should contribute as much as he could, as he felt that his mother depended on him and couldn't wait to be older and stronger so that people would take him seriously and employ him. One day, as he was walking into town to run errands, he came across an elderly woman who was walking with difficulty. She did not look very old, but nevertheless, she seemed to suffer from some disease that arched her spine too much and limited her mobility. The boy approached the woman, who was very well dressed, and with the greatest innocence in the world, asked her why she was crouching. She, who before any adult who asked such a question would explode in anger. He couldn't help but laugh at the question from that little ragged dress. With total naturalness, she explained her illness and ended up telling him a large part of her life as they walked the road together, since the boy had told her that he would accompany her and lean on his shoulders. Thus, this woman, named Aboli, explained to Abel that she had lost her husband and that since she went out to walk along the paths that previously traveled together. She was leaning on Abel until they reached the village. Once there, they said goodbye. But Aboli never stopped thinking about that child. However, the people he asked about him could not give him a reason. Some had seen her before, but did not know where she came from or where her parents were from. She'd sat so much in her own story that she'd forgotten to ask the boy about his life. The months passed and the routine continued. Mildred at home folding boxes, Abel going back and forth to town, and Aboli traveling the same old paths. However, the woman and the child had not met again. One day in a store, Aboli overheard a woman talking about the boy named Abel, who was supremely responsible, much more than anyone who would double or triple him in age. Right away, she knew they were talking about the same boy who had helped her. This is how Mildred and Aboli's friend met. They spent the entire afternoon together, where the friend told her the story of Mildred and her son from beginning to end. She said that how they lived, how they suffered every day from not being able to get out of that place that only made Mildred's health worse and put Abel at high risk. Aboli was shocked by that life story. She'd been through a great grief losing her husband, but she'd never have to go through so much work. And compared to theirs, her life seemed like a rose garden. While Mildred and Abel had only been touched by thorns, Aboli wanted to help in some way, but didn't quite know how. Several weeks passed, and she decided it would be best to give them money to help them survive. However, the day she made that decision, she met Abel again on the road. After several minutes of walking, she knew that the boy had a huge heart and was very simple and noble, but also proud. Abel wanted to get what he needed on his own merit, without having to resort to begging. At that moment, Aboli knew that he would most likely feel hurt if he offered the money he planned to give him and his mother, which was more than enough for them to rent a house in a healthier location. She had to think of a different strategy for Abel to accept her help, and that's why she understood that when she received her donation, she must not find out that it had been a bully's doing. It had to be something anonymous. Days later, she finally found the most suitable solution. She would ask someone who was more agile than her to go to Abel and Mildred's house and drop a $100 bill and a letter at the door as quickly as possible so as to not risk being seen. However, her plans for anonymity would not last long. Abel found the money and the letter, but he couldn't read, so he asked his mother to read it. As soon as she started, the boy knew immediately that the one who had written it was a bully. He was a very observant little guy and remembered a bully's way of expressing herself well. The money allowed them to buy medicines that Mildred had not been able to access until now, and that soon represented a significant improvement in her health. Noticing this change, the boy wept for a long time, and a bully's letter, despite its brevity, became a real treasure for Abel. In it, he told that sometimes the rewards for merits comes in the form of people, and that therefore she should not be ashamed of receiving help when it's offered with disinterest and love. He also told him never to forget the person who was at the first a 5-year-old boy who harbored in his heart all the human virtues, and that if he managed to maintain them through the years, he would become a safe and reliable man, capable of all heroism. Since then, Abel and Aboli were very much more than close, and she would finally be able to offer them help she wanted from the beginning. Mildred couldn't be more grateful then. Thanks to this woman, a widow like her, she was able to see her son grow up to become the hero that Aboli had predicted in his letter. And it's that when Abel was old enough to work, he decided to dedicate his life to save lives of others. And so it was that he became one of the most valued doctors in his town and in neighboring towns for the great patience and love that he treated each of his patients. The hospital that Abel later founded was called Aboli, and within it thousands of lives were saved, and many more came to the world. Abel's life is an example of strength and nobility that is a sound in hearts and all those who are fortunate to know him. If you like this story, please like it and share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.